It's cool. Didn't always do that. Seems useful. So let's get started. Let me share this screen so we can have that.
Do you want to link today?
Sure. Why not? So we did some pre-triage. We'll go through some things. One of the first ones we thought issues to circle back to is the no unwind attribute logic 63909 that we talked about last time. Josh, did you want to share your update?
Yeah, a quick review on that. Based on last time, we have an RFC posted that would define the unwind attribute in the simplest possible way that would allow us to move forward. But given that you said it was the 26th that the beta would be branching for the next release? Was that the date?
24th, maybe?
20-something.
20-something. Given that the 20-something is when the beta would branch for the next release, I'm really skeptical about us, accepting this RFC, adjusting the current implementation to match that RFC, and then stabilizing the result all by the 20-something so that we have a solution for people that doesn't invoke undefined behavior. I think it might make sense for us to go ahead and merge this PR, which just says, hey, if we're going to not abort, we should not put no unwind on things. And then we can add no unwind back when we add the unwind attribute. I would like to run that by, get the general consensus here. But do we think we should try to ram through unwind in the next couple of weeks, or do you think we should merge this PR?
So the actual branching date is the 24th. 26th is when the actual release lands. That people can use it.
Which means technically we can't get through 2 FCPs even if everything was checked off right now.
Oh dear. I think that's unhealthy.
There's no reason. Yeah, what's the point?
Yeah, I didn't realize that was a thing we were even aiming for. Was having it out before.
I think if the RFC is posted, I have no problem with doing the thing saying, hey, we're losing some potential optimizations like this. The fix is this RFC, which is open. Success.
RFC's open. It's tagged work in progress. It's not really much of an RFC in text form at the moment, and there's a great deal of opposition and already 80 comments in the last couple days. So.
Oh, I thought you were doing a new one that was different.
There is a new one that's different.
Can we have a link to it?
There was the older one, and then there's the.
Oh, 2753 is the new one?
Yeah, 2753 is the new one.
Okay. I saw 78 comments and was hoping that was the old one.
No, unfortunately not.
There were multiple attempts to kind of derail this one again into being the all-encompassing RFC that solves, world peace. But those seem to have been managed to get under control, and I think we're on track to just treat this as the direct focused RFC.
I saw that there were a couple comments from GNZ LBG, I think it was, saying that they were opposed to the unwind only attribute. I haven't been following this closely enough because it already got 78 comments in the last 2 days. Somebody who's been following the thread more recently, feel they can summarize what the main opposition is.
That would be helpful.
Well,
I've been following.
The RFC seems very unfinished.
Yes.
As far as I can tell, the objection. Sorry, go ahead. There's a lot of echo.
Go ahead, Josh. Sorry.
I was just going to say, as far as I can tell, the main objection is to whether we are just providing a minimal solution for what people are doing today, with the understanding that people will still have to, for instance, build their C code with -f exceptions, and that this only works if the Rust unwind mechanism aligns with the C++ or C unwind mechanism, but that's what people have today. The objection is basically, oh no, we shouldn't do an interim solution. We should solve everything before we can do anything, as far as I can tell. I'm trying not to be unfair to the objection, but as far as I can tell, the statement is basically, if it's not perfect, we can't proceed.
That's the main objection you think there is on the thread?
Yeah, it appears to be that an objection of, no, we want to fully specify how you handle cross-language unwinding and specify the Rust unwind mechanism and avoid any possibility that people will have to actually know what they're doing in order to use this feature and do unwind from Rust to C to Rust.
There is also
that's combined with some additional complaints of, oh, but if you just completely rewrote the extern function call mechanism of things like mosJPEG to use C++ instead, then you wouldn't have to change the language.
I see. Okay. It seems like somebody needs to...
Code generation and stuff. I have different concerns, which is more around like the RFC is not specified, the chain like type system semantics, the static semantics are not specified, like unwind, what does that do to coercions with function pointers and so on.
Right. And I think the current thought there is we don't currently put no unwind on calls through function pointers at all, which means that...
Sure. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, I was just going to say we don't currently put no unwind on function pointer calls at all, so that doesn't create any undefined behavior. We do need a good solution going forward for function pointer calls, but the theory is right now the people who are using this and need this don't need to do it through function pointers, which means we could proceed with what we have and then have a second round of let's specify a solution for function pointers that is compatible with that.
There is so people from, I think, Fusty, Lucid specifically, do want that to deal with function pointers. They've like explicitly said so on the thread. So
they do need support. They do need support for doing those calls. My point is right now, there is no unwind on function pointers. So what they're doing does correctly work. And we can introduce support for...
I dispute that. The fact that we don't emit that to LVM doesn't mean that in like the Rust semantics, it's not undefined behavior. From what I understand, there is no way to tell LVM this.
Why are we interested in introducing no unwind function pointers? Is that a thing that someone has been asking for?
I agree with that. Why can't we just not solve that problem? When you create a function, you lose the resolution.
It seems highly unnecessary. In fact, like the vast majority of function pointers that people will be using are not no unwind, right? Because they can panic.
Yes.
We're talking about extern C function pointers. Extern Rust function pointers, I believe, are no unwind.
Right. So we're saying
they can't not no unwind. They unwind.
Yes.
So what we're saying is, why don't we just say that we don't capture that in the text system. When you call a function via direct call, we're able to respect the unwind attribute, and otherwise we assume it may unwind.
Yeah, but plus one.
I agree it should be in the. I agree it seems fine to put it in the RFC, but I don't.
Right. We could say currently we assume that function pointer calls through function pointers may not unwind. If we change that in the future, we will provide a mechanism for tagging them as such.
We don't assume that they don't unwind. We assume that they may unwind, which is always a correct conservative assumption.
Sorry. The fact that the LLVM attribute is phrased no unwind is producing a lot of double and triple negatives here. Sorry. We don't currently tag function pointers as no unwind, so we assume that they may unwind.
From my understanding, there is no way to be this.
I think there may be an LLVM, but it's not currently in Rust.
Regardless, we're saying that in our Rust
no way to and no reason to do this.
Right, two good things go well together. But basically, we're saying in our Rust undefined behavior settings, we do not we permit unwinding from function pointer calls.
Do we, or do we just say that?
We're saying that now. Because we want to allow, because we don't care to complicate the type system to track it, and that's what we know that we want to accommodate functions. Like the ABI alone doesn't tell us enough.
So I think that's inconsistent defaults to have function pointers not have no unwind, but to have functions have it.
Functions do not default to no unwind. Nothing defaults to no unwind.
Central means extra and C functions.
Extra and C functions. I'm only talking about
extra and C functions do default to no unwind.
Extra and C functions are special specifically because unwinding across them is a problem.
I am talking about extra and C function pointers in this case, not any other function pointers. Everything I've said is about extra and C.
Yes, extra and C function pointers would make sense to be no unwind if that's a thing that exists.
Right. So I think that we need to have any like static semantics.
But no one needs that though, right? Like we're like the complexity in the type system that you're trying to trade off. Like this is like a new effect mechanism, right? Again, and like I don't think it's worth introducing an additional effect to Rust.
Another alternative would be a different version, like C-unwind or something.
Right.
But
if we were even going to go there, we would need to show that it was worth it in optimization possibilities, and until then, we should just treat it as not a thing we do.
So,
for people who care so much about having things tagged no unwind, you should be using no exceptions and panic equals abort anyway. Like,
it sounds like
not.
I'm more concerned about like surprises in semantics than speed. But okay, so we would need to ensure that the coercion behavior is such that we don't create any future compatibility hazards. If we do that, then I'm fine with it.
What future compatibility hazards are you like with? What future? I think because I think if we adopt the future that Taylor and I were proposing, then there are no hazards because the type system doesn't capture that information. If we're going to separate it, if we're going to in the future consider changing the type of extra and C functions to some other type, then of course there is a hazard of some kind.
Well, if excellencies function pointers by default are no unwind, and then you can coerce unwind one that is like a function that is unwind allowed. Does that coercion make sense?
No.
So then you have a future compatibility hazard.
Well, only if you would
change the default.
Yeah, if you believe that that's why we said it. That's why we said we would not capture the information in the function pointer of whether the target function may unwind or not.
Right. That also means that you can never do it. Like,
that's what it means. That's right. Unless, yeah, pretty much it means that. I mean, we could do it by introducing some new form that you opt into at some point, or if you really wanted. But
I mean, you can just make the coercion an error for now.
But we need then a type. Okay, I see what you're saying. Then we would need. Then you would not be able to call unwind allowed functions indirectly. So we would need a type that allows you to do so.
Yes.
Right. That I think I think the dispute is whether we would want such a type.
Right. Well, whether we want such a thing or not, I think I just made a comment on RFC 2753, if people could take a look at that effectively says, let's specify what we currently assume and then defer to some future RFC, if any mechanism that would change that assumption. I don't want to change that assumption right now. I just want to specify the current assumption.
Well, I think the challenge, so while I think we should do this at the moment, in fairness to Central, I think there's a point that if we are definitely narrowing our future options, if we ever wanted such a type. I just happen to think we don't, and I'm okay with that. Or that if we do, it's okay that the type is a little opt-in. So anyway, I agree with you. I'm just saying it's not like that's a free choice. It sounds like, I think we need to move on from this, but yes, like maybe we need to have, depending how, maybe somebody should try to write up all the situation, I guess, at least. And yeah. It's a conflict worthy of being written out. I'm happy with, well, at the moment I'm only happy with one of the answers, but I think it's worth writing it out. I would volunteer to write it out. I don't think it'd take that long. It also seems like this thread is going to need an active show. Yeah. I'm not sure, Josh, if you feel you're playing that role, in which case I'm happy.
I'm sorry, some of that just cut out.
I'm just saying, it seems like this thread is also, so A, I think we need to like write out the dimensions of this conflict, but B, that this thread needs an active shepherd, making sure that who's like able to summarize the comments and move it along. Yeah. Do you feel like that's you, Josh?
I will see about doing that, yes. Please feel free to assign it to me.
Okay, so there's two action items. There's sort of, one of them is not a discrete action, but shepherd the thread. So are we going to land this PR in the meantime? I think we are.
I think we may want to. Should we go ahead and FCP it?
I think nothing we've discussed here indicates that the RFC will not land, right? We will resolve this.
Yeah, the issue is I don't think the RFC will land in the next, week.
Agreed. I'm just saying, I think Scott had a concern that they wanted to know that the RFC was like open and on track and not indefinitely postponed.
I think I'm fine with it open. It would be nice if we could get it like to a PFCP state and then merge the thing or something, but that's not I certainly wouldn't block on that. That's fine.
Okay.
I guess I would just say, I don't want us to release in a state where we stopped aborting, we still tag things no unwind, and we have no attribute unwind to fix that. That would be a bad state to release.
That has been the case for like years. So it's not exactly new.
It's true, but it still seems like the PR is there. The premise is correct that we are inconsistent. It is an inconsistency, no doubt. All right.
As long as everyone agrees that eventually we will change it back, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, that's why I sort of like if we could have the RFC PFCP that says we are going to change it back, here's the RFC, then merging that, I think having that statement out there helps this is why we're merging this for now.
I don't, it's like not the best idea to count the quality of an RFC by like how many lines it is, but I think it needs to like be 10 times as long.
I'm sorry, did you just say 10 times as long?
Yeah.
No, just no.
I would prefer to be shorter, but
that got derailed into
probably needs
all
more.
No. I'm not saying that it needs to do more stuff. I'm just saying it needs to like be more detailed about the stuff that it does and present the alternatives, like the other.
It certainly needs to fill in all the to-dos, yes.
Okay, let's move on. It's 24 minutes in. Woo! So, p-high issues. I mean, I think we're reasonably good, right? We agree with this. Okay. p-high issues. So there's not much to say about this one. You can read my update if you like. FYI, bench has been considered an unstable feature, but we used to accept the attribute. It's just that doing anything really productive with a bench, which required using an unstable library. We kind of fixed this, but there's some code out in the wild that's compiling. So Petroshenkov implemented a soft feature gate that issues a warning with the hope to transition it at some point. I think this is mostly an FYI, unless anybody has a strong comment about it. We can move on. It's not.
I support making unstable things unstable.
It was not a lot of stuff affected, but enough. So there's some nominated PRs. 64021 redefines the C-stir type to be a new type of an extern type, thus making it a shallow or a thin pointer rather, so that it could actually be used in ABI functions. But Central points out that sort of exposes, in some sense, extern types into our stable surface. So the question at hand is, like, are we committing to some implementation detail we might regret by doing so? I don't know. It seems like the main thing we're committing to is that that ampersand C-stir is a thin pointer. But I'm not sure.
And it's compatible with pair pointer, yes.
So yeah, so what are we committing to? Maybe if anyone has any thoughts about anything else, Gobi and C-stir is a thin pointer that is compatible with C car star, correct?
Yes.
Maybe we can approach it like this. People, any other things you can think of? Let's write it down, and then we can. If anyone objects,
this does open. Does anyone care about using raw pointers to this thing?
The C-stir?
Yeah.
As in a raw pointer to a C-stir would be equivalent to a pointer char?
No, it would be the same as a reference in terms of its representation.
I'm just wondering if this opens the whole, I expected to be able to use pointer null on this thing, and makes that exposed unstable, that we don't have a solution to that. Because right now, if anyone is using a pointer const C-stir, they can use pointer null with it.
You're saying because pointer null fails if the type is unsized? That's not true.
Doesn't it fail for an extern type?
It is true. Well, it also fails for anything that's unsized, doesn't it?
Yes.
And right now it's unsized? Yes, of course it must.
Right. It's already unsized, right?
Same perfect. Then everything's great.
Yeah, so I don't think I don't think this changes that at all.
Is this a stable thing?
Which one?
C-stir?
C-stir?
Yes.
Yeah. C-stir
is 1.0.
Yeah, okay. So it's just stable as a fat pointer?
It has the current implementation is it's a struct that has an inner field which is
bracket, right?
size and unsized, like non-sized slice of C car.
Yeah, I mean it does. I don't know. It seems like this is a good change to me. It seems like technically probably a breaking change, but I doubt anyone's really relying on the curriculum.
Yeah, pointer null's the only thing I know of that cares really about extern type. So if that's not a problem, I think it seems okay.
But the raw pointer to C-stir is size.
No.
Why is that bad?
That's not true. What do you mean a raw pointer is size?
What?
I mean, every pointer is sized, but it's not the question.
So what is
the referent size?
Pointer null, the constructor, the function, only works for sized types today.
Yes.
It has a generic bound. Great. So
yes,
the point here is that you already cannot construct a null pointer to a C-star. And you continue after this to not be able to construct that pointer.
Why do you want to do that?
You don't. We're
I don't know
sure
if you do. I'm just trying to avoid Gotcha.
The question
Just to
was, the
confirm
question
something.
is, are we repeating existing uses of pointer null by doing this? And the
Okay.
answer is
Okay, that seems to be our agree.
Yeah.
Just to confirm something, you'll still be able to convert a pointer null into an option C star, right? And you'll get a none.
You could
I don't know what that means.
you could do this, for example, which is nullable. Like, which is represented as a pointer that is compatible with parstar that can be null, I think.
So,
That's what I was asking, yeah. So we're saying that ampersand C star will be compatible with char pointer if you assume that you'll never get a null. And option ampersand C star will also be a char pointer that you can pass null to and you'll get none. We're guaranteeing both, right?
What's this?
I believe so.
Wait, what's the second option of what?
So in FFI, you'll be able to accept option ampersand C star and get back a null.
Yeah, and what was the first one?
That in FFI you can accept just ampersand C star as long as you just know that you'll have brokenness if somebody passes you a null.
Yeah,
that seems like
And actually, I could ask about this one too. Constructing a box C star unsafely is still unsound, or at least unspecified.
I guess that's what C starring is for.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's even more so than ever since extern type is like.
Okay, cool.
Supposed to be something you can interpret.
So
yeah, I don't see how box could possibly deallocate a box.
Well, it can because it can look for the null. Yeah, it's no, you can't. Stop. I should stop.
So I think so if we use extern type in this way and it like turns out that we don't want extern type or that we want it to do something else, how do we support this? Like,
so there's actually already an existing RFC that Ubisoft wrote that's been in the RFC PR list for forever that I've been trying to get around to both there and Simone's unsized types RFC, and those would both allow us to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So we have options here. This is not like settling us into extern type.
I think we should go forward, but document that these are the main things we expect to be committing to, and if there turns out to be some other side effect, it's unintentional. Not that like this will make a big difference to people's lives, but maybe it will. At least we've written it down somewhere.
All right. Who is doing this?
I can write the comment. That's okay.
Man, I'm excited to get to go change some code after this.
Yeah.
I have a whole bunch of nonsense code that I get rid of.
This is actually, that's an interesting point. Should we suggest that there should be a lint on extern C functions that are accepting a char pointer and immediately converting it to a C star?
No.
I think that would
if
be
you want
a
to
good
contribute that to Flippy, I'm sure they'd be happy to take it.
It's on your own.
I'd say
exactly.
make an issue so I can consider it some other time.
Yeah.
I'll make a Clippy issue and tag you in Central.
We're 33 minutes in. I'd like to see how far we can get. So I don't think we'll get to.
Not that far.
I don't think we'll get to the meta stuff I wanted to talk about. Add check for overlapping ranges. So, okay, there's a PR. This one maybe we can defer, but I'll cover it quickly. So currently you get a warning if you have a range, which is a subset of another range, but you don't get a warning of any kind if you have a range that is a partial overlap. This PR changes that. You get an unreachable patterns lint, which is sort of not strictly correct. The pattern is only partially unreachable. So the question is, do we want this at all? If so, should it be its own lint? There are some legit use cases. I think the one that that Josh was raising earlier is something like this, where you have some random exceptions and then a big range, and it's kind of annoying to write the range without the exceptions. And I think it is a little potentially confusing.
To clarify, this wouldn't happen if you had like a range and then an underscore pattern after it, right? But it would happen if you had like a range and then a bigger, like an open range after it?
It would not warn, I don't know. That's a good point. I think that's a sort of conceptual inconsistency.
Right.
So is there a reason we should do this for integers but not for enums?
We definitely, well, so the only enum equivalent I can think of would be, I guess, either an or pattern that was duplicated, right, or an underscore. And we definitely don't want to do this on underscore, right, is a thing that I believe. That's sort of supposed to be a catch-all.
Yeah.
Right.
I think if we would like introduce pattern aliases, like pattern synonyms in Haskell, then it would even get worse, because you might want to OR together two pattern aliases which are have some overlap, but which you are just using for convenience, basically.
So, okay, so we all sort of agree that presently there are good reasons to write partially overlapping patterns. I think this is all saying it should not be the same lint. Like, this is a categorically different thing, if it's a lint at all.
I think if...
So it seems like a useful Clippy thing first to bake there.
There is one.
It already exists in Clippy.
Oh, okay.
The question is, do we want to bring it to the compiler properly?
I think there would be too many false positives to move it to the compiler.
I think if we could find ways to avoid the false positives. So as a note here, I think that it might make sense to lint the partial overlap case that is in the second line here. If you have 0 to 10 and 5 to 15, linting on that makes more sense than if you have, say, 5 to 10 and then 0 to 20. If you're completely subsuming the previous pattern, I don't think you want to lint on that, because that is the potential case of, and now I'm handling the general case.
That's very heuristic-y, though, because you also get into like, oh, what if they're constants instead of like literals, and what if they came from the expansion of a macro rather than being something that the user wrote in line? Like,
yeah,
sure.
And
I can come up with a set of rules that make this like apply to the like minimal specific case, but I feel like it's not worth it.
I'd like to move on. I feel like we should leave this.
My thing is, this is so heuristic that it belongs in Clippy.
Yes.
Fair.
Sorry. Let's move on to the macro thing. And hello, Nick.
Who's going to write the comment? I propose Taylor or Josh.
I'll take care of it.
All right.
Cool. So Petrichenko has proposed, moving on to the next issue, 63931. Petrichenko has proposed that we stabilize macros into more positions, and provided a report, and there is some discussion, etc. And Nick is here as well.
Oh,
maybe you would like to say something, say a few words about this. Perspective.
I'll start by saying that the details of the hygiene stuff is way paged out, so don't ask me any hard questions. I think I had kind of objected previously to kind of having macros in any more positions, basically because we weren't sure about the hygiene situation. And as far as I know, we're still not. Like, we've been using it and it works, and people have been using it and no one's complained. So, you know, it's probably okay. But what I was saying to Central the other day was, like, realistically, like, to get the kind of understanding that I want and I think others want, you know, we're probably looking at like an entire PhD thesis or something, and there's and even then only with, like, you know, Sam TH or another couple of people would like supervise that. So like, I think realistically we should admit that we're never going to get the deep understanding of macro hygiene that we actually want. And maybe that's okay. Like, it's macros, that they all disappear by the time we've finished parsing. So theoretically, we can't cause any soundness issues. But maybe like best effort hygiene is good enough and we should move forward, because there are people who like know enough to implement this stuff, right? So
to clarify, we're still not stabilizing span def site, right? We're still only stabilizing span call site. So this is just introducing the new positions.
I believe that's
yeah, I'm still not 100% convinced that even just call site or even the infrastructure that we have for using spans as hygiene things is correct. Like, it feels like it is. Like, I don't think there's a problem, but this is novel. This isn't like borrowing something from somebody else who's already done the work, like what we have mostly tried to do with Rust. This is kind of completely new and in an area where nobody here has, you know, really deep expertise.
Yeah. So I forget why, but for what it's worth, somebody from Racket came up to me and told me that the concept of call site was totally ill-founded and gave me a convincing example. And I've been searching for that example ever since. So to mildly back up your concern, but I also, nonetheless, well, we're going in no matter what we do.
We've stabilized span call site, and I don't know that it's worse. Like,
we're obviously not backing that out. So yeah, I'm somewhere around. I think I'm like, I share your concerns, Nick. I guess I think there's a lot of span. There's a big gap between the current state of understanding, at least amongst the Lang team members, and the PhD thesis author. It would be nice to occupy where it's like you at least have like a vague heuristic description of what the expected behavior is.
Do we have a reference page at all about this stuff?
No. Not to my knowledge, actually.
We have a sort of good documentation about macro rules, macros, but that's mostly around like transcription and how that works. I don't think it's about.
Thin and quote have good documentation.
Does this particularly, do any of these proposed sites like seem likely to have more hygiene impact than existing procedural macro sites? Like, we already have procedural macro expressions, don't we?
I mean, we actually don't.
Oh, we have like proc macro
hack. Because of proc macro hack.
So to a certain extent, the ship has sailed. That's like the.
Yeah. I mean, I think I have one of the most pervasive uses of proc macro hack around, so.
Yeah. Although I don't even know how to summarize what I just said.
I personally feel very undereducated about hygiene, and it's very hard to find information about it as well.
Yeah, it's going to take some work to really clarify.
Yeah.
I think we lost it a little while.
There has been some movement with PRs. Matthew and Edward have been working on some stuff there, so perhaps the understanding is better now.
All right. How much
Seems we have Nick.
more do we have to say about this?
Feels like all the macro stuff is just sort of people go and make PRs and it goes in and we sort of shrug our shoulders and hope for the best.
Yes, I feel that way about name resolution as well.
Yeah, we sort of need a Lang team expert on this topic. So we don't have one, which is unfortunate. We have Petroshenkov, but
sorry, I left before my computer crashed. I was going to say, I feel like name resolution we understand a little bit better than macro stuff, but yeah. Anyway, did I miss anything important just now?
Not really.
Okay.
I don't know just what you missed, but I don't think so.
I think Nico made the point that the ship has already sailed. I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, I kind of think that it may well have done. Like we have certainly stabilized enough to that we're kind of like stuck somewhat on this course at this point.
Yeah. The one thing I will say that gives me a certain measure of good feeling is that we transitioned our name resolution algorithm through several improvements, including BUS 2018 and a vaguely unified 2015-2018 model, sort of successfully. And I suspect that hygiene will go ultimately on a similar course where we will kind of come to some better understanding, but it will not be 100% compatible around all the edges, but it will mostly work. And we'll be able to push through.
For example, there has been some hygienization, difficult word, of the standard library macros and whatnot. It's in name one example of that.
Yeah, and I think like we should like hygiene that we have at the moment is mostly correct. So I think like even if we discover there's something fundamentally wrong about it and we have to come up with like a new system, then like it's still going to be just the edge cases that change. Like most macro code will continue to work, I think.
I think that's right. Only like really cases where it's kind of ambiguous what you meant.
Yeah, or I mean, there might be like weird edge cases where like you've got a macro importing another macro which is used in a macro expansion in some way, and then that's used by a procedural macro. And
that sounds exactly like the sort of thing that people are doing today to get around these things.
That's the thing. We're kind of enforcing these weird cases.
Yeah,
right.
I know. I have like a macro that is defined by a proc macro that defines a macro rules macro that defines another proc macro.
All right. I would sort of like to move to the next items because we have 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're not going to reach a firm conclusion past what we've said so far. Does that sound correct?
If I'm reading the room correctly, it seems like we are sort of feeling that we're not adding anything fundamentally more risky with this.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually going to say I would be more aggressive than this, and I would also ask for it to be stable as an expression position so we don't have to use proc macro hack anymore. But it's probably more of a conversation.
Okay, yeah.
All right. I think that's right.
Maybe you'd like to write up the FCP in that case.
Yep.
For that one, Terry.
Oh, for expression position? Yeah, I
no,
can.
No, I mean the one that we're discussing.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Cool. I can still review the PR. I mean,
I don't feel like I have a ton of context on it, but I'm happy to go look around it, what tests exist, and what surface area is being expanded.
Oh, I've done that. The PR itself is fine.
Oh, so you just want me to leave a comment and
There's already a stabilization report, although I didn't.
I guess I can do it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I read your report. I thought you were asking for more of something from me. So.
Okay, I will do it.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, Nick.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. Bye bye.
You can stay if you like.
Okay, let's jump down to this. Well, everybody go check boxes or don't as you choose. But on this is stabilizing Stirling's concept. Actually, so
NLL.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up the NLL stuff. So we were discussing the NLL migration, and well, actually, Central, did you want to present it?
You can, if you like.
Wait, but like, we were discussing it, the release team had some discussions, and then there was some discussion on the compiler team channel, so I thought I'd bring it up here. It would be really nice to have only one biocheck. The compiler would unblock, it would simplify things, we'd close a bunch of sound tools, and we would unblock further improvements. We are kind of targeting the idea, we had a vague target of end of year, which is 140. That's coming up. Turns out when you look at this cycles, there's currently 1,622 known crates that would be broken by enabling hard errors for all of the soundness bugs that NLL fixes. However, of those, only around 100 are root regressions, meaning that the rest are just depending on those 100 crates, basically.
And those crates like depend on it's worth noting that we used to have fewer regressions, and we even closed like 3 of the issues. But since more like GitHub repos were added to Creator, we have like added more.
Okay. Interesting. I see. So the setup.
Sorry, this is testing GitHub repos too, not just things that are on crates.io.
Yes, correct.
Oh, I mean, okay.
And so the point is, there would definitely be some impact if we just did it today. We're currently planning something like this. First of all, we're going to target the most common root regressions. Most of them already have new versions for the new minor versions available, but I think it looks like there's a few left to go maybe. And then essentially try to draw attention to what's happening, publishing a blog post, reiterating the timeline, fixes, giving links to, Felix had a great blog post, you can link to that, and kind of helping people transition and do it. I don't know how other ways, we might do more of such announcements, but that would be the first one.
So typically I think the one action we could do right away is to make like the migration thingies hard errors on 2018 for now. It should be very unlikely for, like, if you have switched to edition 2018, then you have seen the warnings, so you have been like given fair warning that you should fix your stuff. But I think it's pretty safe to do that just right away.
Right.
Wait, are they not already hard errors on 2018 edition?
No.
We wanted to make it easy for people to move to 2018. So.
That's right.
So yeah, that's right. And there's a few options basically of what we can do besides these two things, which is the one Central just said. We could also do, as we have done in some of, find specific cases. Like right now, we just sort of diff the errors, but we can find cases that do not, and kind of make some of the errors hard errors and not all.
We can do both of those.
Right, we can do both of those. And yeah, plausibly, we could go to hard errors, but exempt crates, saying if your crate happens to be named URL, you get a little more time, which feels weird, but
yes,
it's kind of not totally a bad idea. Any thoughts on that? People feel about that?
I mean, if it means we get to delete old borrow check, I'm fine with there being a special case in Rust C that says if the current crate being compiled is called URL, allow this error.
We can check the metadata too, probably. This specific version of URL.
So how
URL version next less than 4.
And we're in Kaplan's mode then.
So I'm looking at the regressed crates. Almost all of them are like GitHub ones. They probably have log files and stuff. Very few of them them are actually like, there's not that many that are on GitHub.
I guess I can't edit this
just to throw the question out there. How would you feel about like making it all a hard error on 2015 right now?
I would like to make the announcement, and I think this cycle is pretty okay. I mean, I guess plausibly one could move it up to one. You're basically saying move it up to 139 instead of 140. But
yeah, one version.
Yeah.
Well, 139 just for 2018 edition.
I think doing 139 2018, 140 2015 feels pretty okay, and it lets us make an announcement, give people a little time. It does make a difference, though, that these regressions are primarily, like, it would be good to note the number of things that are on crates.io versus people's Git repos, because I care a lot more about. I think people will fix their own Git repos if they're maintained. But crates.io can be a pain in the butt. It just lingers. Okay.
I can actually check that.
So I think the TLDR is, we feel pretty good about this.
Yeah, I guess the thing that is interesting to me about GitHub is that it is an indicator of non-root regressions. Root regressions in GitHub, I'm like, whatever. You can fix that.
Yeah, I don't know how many of the root. I don't know how many of the root regressions are in GitHub. Probably very none. Okie dokie. This is already done.
So it seems like we are. So it seems like the rough plan is to go ahead and make it a hard error for 2018 now, and then make it a hard error for 2015 in the next version that we will, like, 14. I mean.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
And then we do the blog post and stuff.
Right. Yep. Okay. I'm going to run through a few small things because we only have a few minutes. Very few. More like FYIs. One of them is we got some regressions recently because we tweaked how the pretty printer works, and people were pretty printing tokens and then relying on details like, is there a space before or after, a comma, and so forth. And it didn't seem to affect too much code. We mostly, if it was a really small thing and it seemed reasonable, we made it won't fix, but this compiler team, I mean. But if there were some cases, like I think we had started putting spaces in front of commas and that broke a ton of stuff, and we reverted.
I mean, we changed the white space formatting of debug output recently, and that broke a whole ton of my tests that I had to go fix.
Breaks all my tests hard to avoid. Although usually I normalize the white space.
I mostly thought that this PR specifically, like, made the output nicer. So that's maybe why I was in favor of it.
Yeah, I happen to think we should not have putting a space before a comma is kind of pretty, like, unusual anyway. In any case, I just wanted people to know that was happening, and we all agree that, like, these details are not to be relied on. Right?
Yes.
There's similarly some regressions around, but they're all kind of isolated, around tweaks to resolution and hygiene. Cue earlier topic. Mostly the result of what appears to be sort of bug fixes. Like, to look at this one, here, use enum debug and derive debug. There's a kind of cycle where, is this debug, like, this refers to some macro that's in scope. Well, here's something that's in scope. Could it be this name? Like, we can't resolve this, so we can't know if there's kind of a tangling. I guess it somehow used to work.
How do people I mean, how do people write these cases?
Oh, I don't know. This didn't seem that.
I mean, Central, this predates you very slightly, but one of my first big Rust C projects was introducing try catch, and we discovered that someone had a struct named lowercase catch, and that is the reason why catch is not a thing.
It happens. In any case, I mean, yeah, we're leaving that unless anything strongly objects. Similarly, there were some bugs where sometimes we allowed shadowed lifetime names and sometimes we didn't. Now we just don't.
Can you just leave action items to actually leave comments about this?
Yes.
We don't.
63893
All right, I'm getting kicked out. I'll see you later.
Yeah, we should go.
By the way, I quickly checked the number of GitHub regressions on the Patreon, and it was 122.
Out of the 16 whatever?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's not as high as advertised. All right.
By the way, it seems like when you checked your boxes, your box on the lem thingy, it didn't actually work.
Which one?
String, the stir lem.
Okay, I'll go RFC bot review.
I don't know if you did that, if you reviewed the attributes thingy as well.
I checked a lot of boxes. All right, I'll recheck. See you later.
Yep. See you.